All right, so just to give you a little idea about how we intend to conduct the rest of these sessions, each block will have 3 speakers. The speakers have been asked to talk for no more than 20 minutes. If they talk less, they can field questions during their talk. So we'll have 3 20-minute presentations. And after that, we will have time for you guys to talk a little bit with each other, and then time for you to ask questions of any of the 3 speakers about what they presented or what you want to know from what they do in their work. I'm going to turn this over to Sarah to start this off.
Hi, so I'm Sarah. I'm a graduate student here at MSU, and it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Michael Dorf. He is the president of the Mathematical Association of America, and he is currently a professor at Brigham Young University, and he has a myriad of accolades. However, what I want to focus on is that he is really into popularizing mathematics, has given over 500 talks, I believe, was what he had said, and I think that it's really a testament to that dedication that he's here today to talk to us. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Michael Dorf.
Let's see, the slides.
Oh. Where's Shiv? Oh. Shiv. I don't know how to do those things. If I touch it, it'll blow up. Those of you that know me well know that's probably what happened.
Great, thanks. Okay, so I wanted to say a little bit more about myself because I have maybe a not so common background. I actually started off as a math education major and taught high school math for 4 years. And my first introduction to any professional organization was the NCTM, of which I was a member for many years. And also the MAA at that time when I was a high school teacher. And when I was a high school teacher, I decided I wanted to go back to graduate school and get a PhD in math education. And the only name I knew was Joan's name. So even though I grew up in California, and I was teaching actually in Germany at the time, we moved to New Hampshire so I could start the PhD program there. And while I was there, the program required you to take a master's in regular math. And I had a math teacher there, Rita Hipsweiler, in complex analysis, and I just fell in love with complex analysis, and I switched out of math education into mathematics. So a little bit different way to go. I also want to point out that I'm a member of a lot of different professional organizations, the MAA, AMS, AWM, SIAM, Society of Industrial and Applied Mathematics, AAAS, KER, and also one I forgot to mention here, but was brought up, or the thought of it came, and that's TIPSY, if you're not familiar with that, Transforming Post-Secondary Education Mathematics, which is interesting because right now, one of the things that they're promoting is this idea of alternative entry points into mathematics. So you don't have to take necessarily calculus to be the first class in mathematics. I also, since I'm kind of the first one to talk here, I wanted to also put a little plug in for the importance of association and professional organizations. I've been interested in reading some books lately. Bowling Alone, some of you may be familiar with. Hillbilly Elegy, and Alienated America is the one I'm right now. And they talk about the importance of organizations and communities in helping people see the positive things in society, and also about bringing about societal change. Now, one of the things we have to be careful about is that we don't get into communities where everybody's the same as us. So we have to have diversity in there, diversity of types of people, diversity of experiences, diversities of opinions and thoughts. But if you do that, then you have a greater chance for bringing about societal change. And I recommend those books. They also kind of relate back to some of the political issues that we're in now, but I will not make any political statements. Also, the idea of networking is great, and looking both for your own growth and for helping others. Okay, so a little bit about the Math Association of America. There's about 25,000 members, depending on how you want to count that. I would say it is the national voice for undergraduate level mathematics teaching. It's a grassroots organization, and it gives members, all the committees, almost everything is run by the volunteers, the members of the organizations. I've learned that now as president. There is so much going on, so much that I do as president. We don't delegate it to staff, but it's the members that do almost all the work there. And also the MAA is very big in popularizing mathematics, which is a big thing that I'm into. Last week I was in Rwanda giving a talk at their Pi Day celebration. Talked about how math is used in Disney and Pixar movies. And a little bit before that I was in Cambodia, also talking about how using math in soap bubbles and things like that. I think it's a great way to get out and let people see a different perspective of mathematics. So some of the programs that the MAA has, Project Next is one of our stellar programs. If you are a graduate student and you're going to and you want to go into academia, Project Next is something you should look up. It is a program to help you make the transition from being a PhD candidate to being a professor. It doesn't matter if you're in mathematics education, statistics, it addresses all those. Also, it addresses brings about topics related to undergraduate teaching of mathematics, and it's a great source for networking. The Project Next is celebrating its 25th anniversary this year, and there's about 100 members each year that'll get into Project Next. Joan mentioned some stuff with data science. We've noticed the importance of that, and so one of the programs we're doing for a second year now, we're doing a data science training workshop for faculty members in math, computer science, math education. Because a lot of the faculty hear about data science, but they don't know what it is, this is a chance for them to learn more about it in a non-threatening environment. It's a very hands-on type of workshop where you'll learn a little bit about data science, and then you'll be thrown in with a group of other professors or faculty members, and you'll work on a problem. So you can kind of see what it's like to do that. The MAA is proposing a suite of workshops for the next few years. This one that we have this year is just for faculty members to learn what data science is, to get their hands dirty trying to do some. We have a couple of the math institutes that are going to host some workshops next year. And they will be, some of the topics will continue to be what is data science, but also how does data science fit into traditional math courses? Like if you're teaching linear algebra, can you put data science in that? If you're doing abstract algebra, can you put data science into that? If you're teaching calculus, can you do that? And then another topic that we will address will be what are the mechanisms, what are the best practices for having data science as a minor or an emphasis in a department. So we're looking forward to that. Another program we have is Stat Prep, which is an NSF-funded program on what are the best practices for teaching statistics in an undergraduate program. And then I'll mention also the SIGMAs, which is special interest groups at the MAA, and they do everything from room, so research and undergraduate mathematics education, that's a SIGMA, to recreational math is a SIGMA. There's about 15 or so different SIGMAs there. And what's nice about that is you get a smaller community with people who are interested in that particular topic. Okay. Undergraduate curricular issues. Some of you probably are familiar with the studies related to calculus, David Bersoud, and Vilma Mesa, and Chris Rasmussen, San Diego State, about what is the status of collegiate level calculus, what are the best things that we should do for those. There's also the MAA's CUPM curriculum guide, so suggestions for what's the best curricula for undergraduate math students. And there's the work on developmental mathematics. Programs for students. So the MAA is also very big into K through 12 competitions. There is the AMC 8, AMC 10, AMC 12, American math competitions, the International Math Olympiad. So when I was in Rwanda, this was a big thing because they were trying to make a math Olympiad team. So high school students who compete at solving tough math problems. And in 2021, the International Math Olympiad, the IMO, will be in the United States, hosted by the MAA in Washington, D.C. So we're looking forward to that. It should be a great event doing that. Another program for students is the NREUP program, which is undergraduate research projects for underrepresented minority students. That's funded, again, by NSF. And then the last one I want to mention is Pick Math. And this is one that Susie Weeks at WPI and I founded. And Pick Math, we had a little bit of talking about preparing students and helping them learn. And then one of the questions that was asked in the set of questions to discuss was this idea of preparing students. And I guess the perspective I got on this was preparing students for technical careers versus actually having them thinking and learning. What I really like about Pick Math, well, let me tell you about what Pick Math is. And by the way, I should mention, at the table over there at the MAA, I have some flyers or handouts. So this talks about the data science workshop in case anybody's interested. This is the Pick Math program, and I have another one that I'll talk about. There's a new program, NSF-funded one, called Get the Facts Out, which is trying to get the information that teaching high school mathematics there's a lot of misconceptions about what it is. And this is trying to get the correct facts out about what teaching high school mathematics, what the salaries are like, how much interest there is, and the need for getting more people involved with that. So what is Pick Math? Pick Math is a program probably about 6-7 years ago. NSF came to the professional organizations and said, we want to create a program that will prepare students for jobs outside of academia, outside of teaching. And they said that if you look at the data, most students, undergraduate students, don't become clones of us. They're not professors. But what do? Well, a percentage goes into high school teaching, but even a larger percentage goes into industry. So, and how many of us are preparing these students for these careers? Well, most of us aren't doing that because we don't have any experience in that. We've always been at academia. That's all we know. So what can we do about this? This is the idea that NSF came to the professional organizations. I just happened to be at the MAA on sabbatical that year, so we grabbed the program. We said, this is great. We worked a little bit with SIAM to submit a proposal to do this. And basically what the program is we provide resources for a professor to teach a course in the spring semester where instead of lecturing, the students are actually working on a problem that comes from industry. It's not a textbook problem. It's not a problem you can find on the internet, but it's a problem. You connect with a company from industry. You get a consultant from industry. They help the students set up the problem. Then they work on that problem in that course. They spend the whole semester learning what they need to do. Okay, and then at the end, they write up a 12-page paper presenting their solution to it, describing the problem, presenting the solution, and they do a video presentation of it, and they share it with the companies. Some examples of types of problems. In North Carolina, there was a problem from a company called Congregate, and Congregate does an online, they do a rating system for online videos, video games, and the problem is that people who work for a certain video game might go on there and give a false rating on it, saying this game is the best in the world, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Or they may go to competitors and really knock it down. So how do you determine whether a evaluation submitted is actually a real one or a false one? And the students were given a whole bunch of material, a whole bunch of data on this, and their goal was try to figure out what's right and what's, what is valid and what's not valid. Now, some of you might think with this idea of data, this data is so big, if you tried to print it out on pieces of paper, it would fill this whole room up. You can't look at it. So how can you do this by using mathematical thinking, coding, and statistics to try to evaluate it? That's just an example of the type of problem that the students worked on. We're really excited about that program, Pick Math. It's been done at we're in our fourth year. It's been done at 135 different universities, and about 2,000 undergraduate students have participated in it so far. And we've worked with about 150 different companies in industry, things like that. Okay, just a little bit more about this Get the Facts Out. Again, this is a brand new program. I just found out about it a few weeks ago. Again, trying to get more information about what it is like to be a high school teacher and where some of the issues are. I think with that, I'm going to stop for now. So I don't know who I give the mic to.
I would say that we have plenty of time if any of you want to ask some questions right now, or you can save the questions for later. David.
So while going through teacher preparation, especially say at the secondary level, people go through many math courses. And while we're trying to get our K-12 teachers to teach in research-supported ways, many of their professors are not teaching in those ways. To what extent is MAA, or could MAA, reach out to try and push towards methods of teaching that aren't a century empirically outdated?
Right, so this gets a little bit to, so I had some thoughts on some of this other stuff here. What about, let's see, I think this one probably addresses it. How do you bring about change? How does an organization bring about change? How does a person bring about change? And I think there's a lot of components to that. The MAA has a lot of people who are, I mean, we've got the room group in the MAA. So we have a lot of people like David Pursued, Chris Rasmussen at San Diego State. A lot of these people who are involved with the math education want to bring about this change. The difficulty is people are brought up in a certain traditional way of teaching. One of the problems I think is that certain mathematicians who are professors, especially if they're maybe a little bit older, they look at it as, I was taught this way, it worked for me, therefore it's got to work, it's good enough for everybody else. They need to get over that idea that small percentage, I would say less than 10%, are those types of people that it works well for. You need to get them thinking, what about the rest of the people? What about the other 90% of people who don't learn that way that you learn it?
Well, and even those people, you know, the body of empirical literature says you successfully learned that way, but you would have more successfully learned this other way.
Right. Well, so let me get, let's see, one more slide I have here. Yeah, kind of like the me versus, us versus them type of approach. One of the problems I think also that happens here is mathematicians look at proof a certain way. They look at mathematical proof, and they say this is the valid way to think about it. They're, I would say, arrogant about this. When math education research is presented to them, it's got to be presented in a way that it's not the same as a mathematical proof. I've been at some workshops and conferences where math educators have said, we have proved that active learning is the best way to do it. Okay? But that may be true, but there's a difference between what is right and presenting it in a way that people will accept it. And one of the problems is the discussion that both sides are having is this is what's right, but they're not thinking about the best way to communicate that to the other group. And so that's something I think that both sides need to work on. How do you present it so that people will understand it from their perspective? And this goes a lot with this idea of building a community. This last point here, promote communalities, need to work together on projects. I think one of my pet peeves in the math community is that mathematicians are in a silo. Joan mentioned something about the STEM. I was at a AAAS meeting a year ago when they said, somebody asked what is STEM, and they said science, technology, engineering, and medicine. And it's like, we're not getting the message out. Mathematics is important, okay? But even among the mathematicians and the math educators, the mathematicians are not coming over to the math educators. We need to work more together on common things. There's a lot more that we agree upon than that we disagree. But we need to work on communicating better, and we need to work together on projects so that we see what's happening. My experience is that when we work together, we'll make more progress than if we try to hammer it down on a person's head.
Let's give them a great hand for adding to our conversation.
Good morning. I'm Sun Young Park, a graduate student in Prime. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Connie Schrock today. She is currently a professor in mathematics department in Emporia State University and the president of NCSM, which is focusing on leadership. So she's going to present bold leadership today. Please welcome Dr. Connie Schrock.
Thank you. I'm glad. I'm not very good at standing at podiums. I'm not very good at holding still either. So I have a unique position that I am in the mathematics department. I have 2 masters in math, but I taught high school first. And then I was planning on my PhD in math with research in mathematics education. I went to an institution that said, yes, you can do that. We'd love to have you do that. I got to prelim level, passed a prelim, and got ready to pick research. And they said, oh, he retired, and we didn't hire anybody else. So you can do real math. It's okay. And I went, wait a minute. My research is going to be mathematics education, and that's what I did. And I was in the early calculus movement with computer algebra systems back a while ago. So I teach in the mathematics department, and I feel really lucky because we have a lot of new mathematicians in our department that are, a couple are next fellows, and we are using active learning in multiple ways, and we are also using mastery-based grading. And we're doing that in abstract algebra and in trig and in linear algebra. And we have gateways in calculus. So we are changing our program. Yes, there are a few people that haven't changed as much, but we are making great changes in our department. And I feel blessed. I teach the math methods. I also teach the graduate class on non-Euclidean geometry right now. So a little bit of dichotomy. As far as NCSM, I am blessed with 2 full-time jobs. My volunteer job is president of NCSM, and my job that pays the bills is working at Emporia State, and I am lucky to have both of those. I want to talk about mathematics education needs bold leadership, and you're seeing that today. And why do I choose those words? Well, because it's important to where we're going. It's important to all the issues that we've heard today. And what do you think? Just for a second, what do you think when we think about bold mathematics leadership? Well, I was teaching problem solving, and we were going through strategies you could use in my methods course, and one of my students raised his hand. He goes, you forgot one. I said, what? He said, Google. So I used Google, and I looked up bold. And look at this. I don't think I've seen as many synonyms for bold. Showing an ability to take risks, confident and courageous. When you're bold, I would say sometimes you don't feel confidence and or courageous. And I'm not sure swashbuckling is a really good synonym. Then I looked for bold leadership, and it had 114 million results in a matter of less than a second, right? And most of them were business. Okay, most of them were business. This is where they care about bold leadership. So then I thought, well, let's Google bold math leadership, and wait a minute, everything that came up, and CSM. Whoa, I was so excited. And I looked at the number, and well, not quite the 114 million, but 13 million. But then if you follow the trail, it turns into bold fonts. Bold math fonts. Okay, so it kind of left my idea. So when you're talking about an organization, we are a leadership organization. We're trying to step away from the name National Council of Supervisors of Math because it was founded 50 years ago as supervisors. But now we're a leadership organization, about 3,000 strong, and we have almost half of our membership are coaches. We have curriculum developers, we have principals, we have college professors. I am the first full-time college professor to be president of NCSM. I'm also the first person to have held all the elected office before I was a slow learner before I became president. And the president that's following me and will take over in about 2 weeks also has been elected to all the positions. And I think that gives us a unique insight into our organization. We redid the mission statement in June after I became president in April 2 years ago. And it's important when you do this that you know what your bottom line is. Our bottom line is high quality mathematics teaching and learning every day for each and every learner. And sometimes our learners are teachers because we have curriculum developers, we have supervisors, we have coaches that are working with teachers. So it is about the student ultimately, and we get there through different methods. So this is our bottom line. And of course, if you have a mission, you have to have a vision. You have to know where you're going. I'm always reminded of Big Bang Theory when Amy Fowler is driving Sheldon around, and she's driving, and she says, "Where are we going?" And he says, "It's on a need-to-know basis." And she said, "I'm driving, I need to know." Well, we need to know what we're doing, and the words that were not mine, but were formed by my board, and if you know anything about making a board of leaders, this was a hard-fought statement. But it says, our bold leadership in the mathematics education community develops vision, and so on. And so that's where I'm taking my words, because it's time for us to be bold. It's time to decide what are our unnegotiables. What are we not going to negotiate on? What's most important for our bottom line? So you can't be a bold leader if you don't have a vision, if you don't have direction. You've got to have a purpose. With everything I talk about, it's about learning. I tell my method students the first day of class, it's not about you, it's about them. We need more bold leaders now than any time before. So this is kind of why, look at these memes. They're everywhere. And I really like, we hate math 4 in 10, a majority of Americans. There's a problem. There's a problem. And the man with the pineapples, you know, this is the guy you read about in math problems. People are making jokes about it. We laugh. But sometimes that's the only image people have of what we're doing in mathematics. We have a newsletter we publish, and in the spring edition, my article talked about, in 2018, the highest rate of teachers and other public education employees are leaving their jobs. Okay, wait a minute. We talk about we're not producing enough, and now the data is telling us they're leaving. That's a problem. I believe it's we have to do something about it. And part of it is the induction problem into their jobs, the induction program, the process that you have. You see, universities, I prepare a lot of secondary ed majors that are going to teach middle school and high school. But I'm not done. I can't tell them everything in one semester of my class. They go out and student teach, they get better. But then when they join a school district, when they join a university faculty, they need a program that is strong, that helps them understand the reality of their new job, not their vision or their image of what they think it's going to be like. Now, I pulled some STEM data because I've been looking at STEM a lot. Did you know it was first called SMET? That was its first name. Science, math, had the two biggies up front. But then somebody at I've got the research on it, changed it, and everybody jumped on it because STEM sounded a little better than SMET. So.
Judith Ramaley at NSF.
What?
Judith Ramaley at NSF.
I think I have that in one of my STEM talks. Yeah, it was a good idea. I'm just saying. Now, this is some interesting data about, the students that demonstrate an interest in STEM and yet the percent that are actually ready. And this is the one that really stands out to me. And I wanted to make sure you saw it, so I made it bigger. In 2.1 million students, less than 1% had an interest in teaching math or science. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? Who are going to teach our kids? Because we do, like the MAA slide said, we do create the future. We wrote a position paper with NCTM, and Robert was on this with me and a lot of other learned people. And whenever we put out a position paper, it has to be ratified by both boards. Everybody has input on it. And this position paper is on our website where you can look at it. And we worked together to come up with this. But one of the key points I think we have to remember when we talk about STEM, as far as mathematics is concerned, is we aren't compromising the mathematics. If you're doing a high school Algebra 2 STEM project and the only mathematics you're doing are adding up the numbers, we have a problem. If you're only doing the mean, median, and mode, we have a problem. Because then we have kids in those classes that say, wait a minute, why do I need this Algebra 2? Here's this great project, lots of science. I don't need to do this Algebra 2. Instructional time for mathematics. We have standards in mathematics and science. We have material that we need them to learn. So we have to create projects with integrity to the content and the math practices. In our general position papers, we put out a position paper. It is hard fought. Sometimes it's a year, sometimes it's 2 years before it becomes public. Because we spend a lot of time looking at what the research informs us. We talk about our position, we talk about the background, we have discussion of the relevant factors on whatever the position is, and then we have actions. Some are teacher actions, leader actions, researcher actions in our paper. And then, of course, we have the references. Now, that's our website, mathedleadership.org. And most of these papers are in front of the membership. There's a few that are behind. Another one we just put out because we believed our members needed information to go back and talk to administrators and curriculum directors and their other clientele, the other stakeholders in the program. You see, I believe in computer science. I believe in coding. In fact, when I was in high school, I was in a pilot project that during Algebra 2, we used punch cards and punch tapes, and we wrote programs to do Algebra 2 stuff. Okay? I was there in the beginning. It was a one-thing shot in an inner-city school. I am a first-generation college student. But, and here's a big one, while I believe in this, it's not at the exclusion of the mathematics. And lots of places, there's money right now for this. So let's take this course and replace Algebra 2 or advanced math. It's in addition to the mathematics. In my evolution as a professor, my department has changed a number of times if you've been around a while. And we were mathematics and computer science. And we would get computer science majors who were shocked they had to take math classes. And if you read our paper, you'll find that in the AP computer science, it says you don't really need to know a language to teach one of their courses. That bothers me. This paper has challenged my bold leadership more than any other. It's written with Todos, Mathematics for All. And this paper has a lot to say about what we have to do in the future of mathematics education. This is the big statement, but again, I want to pull out. A social justice stance requires a systemic approach that includes fair and equitable teaching practices. Wait a minute. How can you have fair and equitable teaching practices if your teachers don't know what that is? If they don't know how to do it? So that's important. We're working on a position paper right now. It was going to be released April 1st. I don't know if it's going to make it because this is a big one. Closing the opportunity gap with mathematics course pathways and policies, the need for D-tracking. Wow, I believe in this. But you take a whole group of leaders and you have to look at everything the research is saying, and you've got to look at how you say it, and you've got to look at what you include, and you've got to be able, if you're a member of the organization, to stand behind it. So we're working on this one because I think it's important. And because our organization thinks it's important. Beyond our position papers, NCSM has annual conferences, webinars, leadership academies, leadership seminars, e-news, newsletters. We have to take our positions and put them in action. We have to take our positions and give people the skills to meet these goals, to be bold leaders. This is brand new. This is a step out. This is a bold leadership move by my board. We are publishing this series, NCSM Essential Actions, and the first 2 books are coming out April 1st. They will be available at our conference, and we are self-publishing because we wanted to control the narrative. We're producing an executive summary for the 3rd book that will come out in Chicago. These are just 2 quotes about coaching. There are lots of ways to help teachers get better, but we believe one of the very strong ways to do it is to use mathematical coaching. So this book is about that. And not only do we put the book in place, we have a pre-conference about it, we're having a summer conference about it, because you have to find every way you can to reach people if you believe you have something that they need to know. Our instructional leadership book is to help administrators. There are great administrators out there, but mathematics might not be their field. So how do we help them work with our teachers? How do we help them advance the learning for our bottom line, which is better math for more students, more understanding? It's about the learners. The executive summary for the book that's coming out is being written right now. Talks about 4 pillars: advocate, design, empower, and monitor. And then we have imperatives, because you start with yourself. If you're in grad school here, you're starting with yourself. You're educating yourself. You are making your commitments to yourself on what you're going to do. Then you branch out to your colleagues. And finally, you make it to commitment to others, so you branch out to other stakeholders. So we're looking at how do we, again, increase the learning for each and every learner. A new monograph that's coming out. It'll be in the bags for everybody coming to our conference. I'm pretty excited because I live in Kansas, and that one of those papers up there on the cover is Brown versus Board of Education. So, and we have the national site about 50 miles from my house. We're going to talk about a systems perspective in this paper. And the paper is filled with articles from the university mathematicians working with them, from the teachers in the classroom, from the supervisors. So we have all these different perspectives included. I've been working with Uri Treisman a lot lately. And one thing he said a conference ago that he might even remember he said it, but he said we need to create a classroom that supports 3 important mindsets. I believe that's important for the learners and for the teachers. And the first one is capability. If you go in the classroom and you don't believe you're capable of learning the material, you're not going to go anywhere. That's got to be true of our college classrooms, our high school classrooms, our middle school classrooms. We have to let our learners know that they are capable of doing what we ask them to do. The second mindset is belonging. They've got to know they belong there. It's important. It changes the way you learn. It changes the way you look at things. And finally, here we go with the applications, the STEM, the other uses of mathematics in chemical and engineering fields. They got to know there's a purpose for what they're learning. So I'm going to encourage you to be that bold leader, the person that's willing to act. I just like this picture, you know, and I think about that.
Is it coming out of the slide or is it heading for the bowl?
That depends on how bold it wants to be and your interpretation of this picture. And I teach history and math as well, so I'm closing with my favorite quote. I cannot teach anybody anything. I can only make them think. I hope I challenge you to think. Thank you.
Thanks, Connie. We'll move to David. We'll save questions for Connie till the end.
I'm a little jittery because I don't always drink coffee. So it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Carla Cotright-Williams. Currently, she works with the Department of Defense, has previously worked with NASA, with the United States Navy, invited speaker all across the country, just an amazing person with so many merits. But really what I want to emphasize as I introduced her in my conversations with her was the emphasis on thinking about human beings and the impact we're having on human beings. Carla talked to me about her view of her work is to leverage her background with a PhD in mathematics to impact real human beings, which is such a tension, partly because in mathematics we tend to abstract. And how much can you abstract human beings before they lose their humanity? And partly because we then have to take these very advanced ideas and communicate them to, lay people, or to novices, to people who don't have the same background we have. And it's so incredibly difficult, and I have so much respect for it. So with that said, Carla Cotright-Williams.
Thank you, David. I thank you for the gracious introduction. I gave David a hard time earlier when I asked him about his research. And the terms that he used, I didn't know them. They were new to me. And I said, give it to me straight. Just what would you tell your grandmother? That's how I like to explain to my students. How would you explain it to your grandmother, your research? And if you can't do that, you probably don't know what you're talking about. Right? If you know it, you can break it down, right? So I am Dr. Carla Cotright-Williams. I always say that because my grandmother made sure I told everyone that I have a PhD. So that's why I share that with you today. But I work for the Department of Defense. Actually very excited. I just recently started a detail with the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center, the JAIC, and I get to go work at the Pentagon every day. So that's really a neat thing as a young woman from inner city Los Angeles. And interesting part, both my parents have their college degrees. My dad was a PhD, well, he was not a PhD, he's a police officer, pardon me, in Los Angeles. And, just a really tough job, right? Just as tough as being a teacher, but people shoot at you. Well, I guess that's similar. this day and age, unfortunately. But so I grew up in LA, went to state school. I went to public elementary, high school, and actually my entire education has been within public school systems. So I taught the public school system. I was a assistant professor. Well, I guess Wake Forest is not public, but the other schools were. So I was a tenure track professor at Norfolk State University, a historically black college in Norfolk, Virginia. And I left Norfolk State, left a tenure track position, can you believe that, to serve as the 2012-2013 AMS Congressional Fellow. And so I worked on the Hill for a year and left academia after that. Never went back, just because I wanted to have a different kind of impact on the world. Now, granted, you're having a huge impact in a classroom, but there are people who will never, ever be in a classroom at the college level. So it was important to me to be able to use my math to help those who might never just need to get a degree. Beyond that, I worked for the Social Security Administration, where we collected and maintained all of your information and very safely and securely. And so one of the big things that we were looking at, the project I worked on, was to figure out how we could help bring down the backlog of disability applications for benefits, because there's so many people applying. The backlog, it's been in the news, millions of people are waiting to get their benefits, and we had to figure out a way to do that. So we're using data analytics to help address that issue. I left there actually to join the Department of Defense, and which is where I am now. But I mention all that just to say that while I'm a black woman, I'm the only black woman I see. I think there's some women of color in addition to me, but I am a mathematician. I am just like you, right? And I feel like if you do math, whether it's math ed, you're a mathematician. And so I think that's one of the questions that which I wanted to address that as well, the us versus them, but we'll talk about that later. But so the National Association of Mathematicians was created in 1959. As you can see, we are celebrating our 1969 rather, we're celebrating our golden anniversary. But NAM, which as we are affectionately known as, is a nonprofit professional organization in the mathematical sciences with membership open to all persons, so each and every one of you can be a part of NAM, interested in the mission and purpose of NAM, which are promoting excellence in the mathematical sciences, promoting the mathematical development of all underrepresented minorities, which seems to be redundant to say, so underrepresented persons is what I'll say. Okay. So we have several goals, major goals that are similar to other professional societies to engage in activities, projects, programs, conferences, workshops, etc., and assist persons of all ages to seek, embark, or maintain an active interest or career affinity in some area of the mathematical sciences. And again, that's a common thread throughout all of our societies. Okay. To increase the mathematical sciences community and general public's awareness of the issues and importance in areas of mathematical sciences, especially those of interest to underrepresented groups. So while we don't call ourselves the Black Math Group, the majority of our membership are African Americans or of African descent. Someone said, well, I've never heard of NAM. Well, maybe this is the great opportunity to just know that most of our members are from historically black colleges and universities, HBCUs, so some of you have heard that term, and there are just not that many of us, so that's another reason why. Okay, you have not heard of us. My title with the organization, I am the outside academia rep. So I am a liaison to our organization to just really promote opportunities, math careers outside of academia. And as you've heard my past, I think I am a good fit for that because I have had a chance to really just kind of break out of the typical, well, not typical, the I don't even want to say the mold. I don't know the best way to say that because I don't want to offend anyone by saying that there's a typical mold of a mathematician, but maybe that's the best way to say it anyway. So we do have a very standard structure. So you see there, outside academia. So we split up our membership into regions. I don't even know what region C is, but it's there. It's on our website, so I had to use it. Yeah, so we try to cover the entire country. I will say this, while we have a lot of our members are part of HBCUs, we also are concerned with students and faculty at minority serving institutions as well. Okay. We act as an advocacy group for underrepresented groups. So some of y'all know some of our membership through participation with the Joint Data Committee, the Conference Board of Mathematical Sciences. So someone asked me that this morning. I think it was you, Connie. So yeah, we have representation there, but we're not a formal member of the Conference Board. The MAA. So again, some of y'all know some of our members because of that participation. Here's a few others. So Infinite Possibilities Conference is a conference for women. And it's funny to say women and underrepresented groups, so women are underrepresented in math. So all of that for IPC. CARMS is a really great event. Is the conference for African American researchers in mathematical sciences. It's really a technical conference. Students come and give talks, and there are industry representatives who there also give talks. And SACNAS, the Society for Advancement of Chicano and Hispanic and Native Americans in Science, is also an important group to us. Okay. Again, we have a pretty standard structure. We have standing committees. Again, all these committees, we often have to serve on several committees. We are a small group. Some of our programs and activities, we have 12 signature activities which take place across 5 points throughout the year. We are at the joint meetings. Anyone attend the Hidden Figures event a few years ago at the joint meetings? It was really great, thank you. It was really good, wouldn't you agree? We also have, and I'll talk a little more about this shortly, the Regional Faculty Conference on Research and Teaching Excellence, and the NAM Undergraduate Math Fest as well. Okay. So the Research and Teaching Excellence Conference will be held next month, but the conference is for primarily for faculty at HBCUs, and it rotates around the country depending on our regional structure. We have contributed talks from faculty, regional panel discussions, a short course on computational science, and a lecture, and then we have a banquet. We always like to get together to eat, but I think that's just what we do in math anyway. But this is a really great conference, so you don't have to be at an HBCU to attend this conference. So if you're interested in learning more, the conference will be held at Texas Southern University in Houston, April 26th through the 27th. And I'm sorry I didn't put that on this slide. And these are past locations for the conference. We also, one of our events is the Undergraduate Math Fest. We are pleased to announce that we were the first to coin the term Math Fest, and not that it matters, right? But it matters, let's just mention it. But we have student talks, poster presentations, graduate fair, again, another prime lecture. But this is a really great event for our students, and our students meaning students of color or underrepresented students, to come together and present their work. And, again, we're encouraging students to go on and pursue graduate degrees in mathematics and math education. So I'd like to just put this out there that, we're a small enough group that we have to be concerned with pure math, applied math, math ed. We have to cover it all. So we don't just have a specific group for math education. We're really concerned about all folks who do and study any sort of math. So again, we were first, but it doesn't matter. Okay. The joint meetings, just saying. We do have a very strong presence. So if you ever look through the program and you see NAM, now you know what NAM is. But we have a presentation of recent doctoral recipients, which is a really nice way to just celebrate the few students of color who are graduating each year, because we know the numbers for African Americans earning PhDs in math are very, very low. And so that's probably something we can talk about in terms of math ed as well. But we have several lectures, we have several awards that we present, and our business meeting and all. So I know some of y'all have had a chance to come to our banquet on that Friday night. But if you'd like to learn more about NAM, we have over 500 members. And our membership fee is very low, so students come on. Faculty come on. But please go visit our website. There's a lot of information there. Unfortunately, like I said, we are a smaller group, so we don't really have the funds to bring printed materials, but there's a lot of useful information there, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. It seems I may be one of those representatives of the African American community for mathematicians, so I'll be that as well if need be. So I'll just say that. Thank you. I turned it off.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any direct questions for Carla right now? Is there anything that you would like to? Yes, Jack.
So this came to me when Connie was speaking. Connie, I was imagining you sitting with your board, and you mentioned the problem of teachers leaving the field. And I'm thinking of your group because the greatest focus there is K-12 as opposed to K-16.
Right.
If we stay in our lane about teaching mathematics, the discussion can be about, oh gosh, there's all kinds of opportunities, employment opportunities for math teachers. But how do you encourage people to enter and stay in mathematics teaching when the general professional climate for teachers is being so degraded?
So toxic right now. Yeah. Are you aiming that at me?
I'm imagining,
Okay.
I was placing myself in a board meeting with 2 minutes to get the sense of the group about that challenge.
You know, it's got to be about your motivation. It has to be about your motivation, and that goes back to the bottom line. Because you aren't going to stay in teaching because you want the money, and it is no longer sufficient to say it's okay for the summer. It has to be that you care about the light in their eyes when they learn. It has to be that you get the intrinsic rewards that are there, that you understand how important your role is, and that we take leadership to the next level to change that profession so that more people feel comfortable to go into it. Because right now I feel like K-12 math especially is on the front lines of attack. I often say if you look at who's in power, they tend to be white males who had a good education, therefore they know all about education because they had it their way. And so what we have to do is change the way we're educating so that the power roles shift, so that we are not the front line of attack.
Thank you. I would just nudge, I think attending, focusing our young people on the nature of teaching and what the appropriate rewards are is a good thing to do. My wondering is more about how we engage as professional organizations to make the climate more attractive overall. I don't think we can just stick in our lane and work to educate our teachers, our rising teachers better without engaging in the general climate.
Michael?
Yeah, so at the AMATIC conference last fall, Yuri Treisman gave an address there, and one of the things that he said really impressed me, and that is, he talked about the way that we're going to be able to bring about systematic change in society is if all the professional organizations unite and work together on these important ideas. I was a high school teacher. I loved teaching high school, but I had a family. There is no way I could afford to teach in Los Angeles with my family. So I got out of teaching in high school, became a professor instead. We need to work on changing this, and I think that if the professional organizations get the cause and work together as a united voice and talk about these silly things like, sorry, I'm gonna be political about this. The government wants to spend all this money for a wall. Why don't we change that for teaching? Now, I know people have tried that in the past. They've tried to change this, but I don't think we should give up on doing this. I think we should unite and talk common sense to the general public. I went to a AAAS meeting a year ago where they had somebody talking about trying to get across the message of climate change. They said that people are often already set in their ideas, and if you just talk facts to them, you're not going to change their opinion. What you need to do is build common backgrounds that you have with these people, and then talk about how, for example, climate change affects that. Like, for example, if you have somebody who doesn't believe in climate change, or whether it's immunization, or that teachers are paid, or not, the teachers' salary is okay, what you need to do is talk about common things like, well, I have children and you have children, and then build upon the idea that we want the best for our children. Well, what is the best? And then talk about, at that point then, as you build that commonality, talk about the research and work that way. I think that the professional organizations, if we are able to unite together, we could make some impact on this. That's my personal feeling.
And the light in his eye got sparked.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just want to follow up on this because as I've been listening to each presentation and thinking again about Joan's keynote, Joan was really advocating for more interdisciplinary collaborations, and it's important that we're able to get people who come from different perspectives at the same table and do more than just share our version of the facts. But what I've been wondering is, what are associations doing to build capacity for their members to do more than just be at the same table, but be able to develop the skills to have those kinds of conversations that really build something?
I'll put a plug in for the AMS. I think the AMS, with this Congressional Fellow program, also with some media stuff, there are certain organizations that I think are more on the forefront of that. Another one is CUR, which is Council on Undergraduate Research. They have programs where they are trying to train their members how to talk with people in Congress. And I think that type of approach would be really good.
Yeah, so I know for our organization, we're just trying to be present in the room. Excuse me, and to get at the table is even better. But I found in my experience, and excuse me, I don't know why I'm just falling apart this song. But the us versus them, we are so few as African Americans and people of color in math that you almost have to pick a lane for a little while. I need to focus on being the best mathematician I can be, or math educator I can be, and that other stuff will have to take care of itself. For me, I hadn't had all the support, and there are others similar to me who chose to take a path to get to the table, to be outside of just the classroom, because we know that there's work to do. And not everyone's as supportive of that, right? Especially if you're really in the really pure math community where it's just research, publish, perish, that's it, right? Not everyone appreciates that outside work needs to be done. I mean, that's almost, dare I say, most important, because the funding's there, the opportunities for excuse me, inclusion are there. We have to be concerned about that, what's happening in the bigger world. And maybe it's something about just doing math and I hate to say the elitism of it all, that we kind of push that other stuff to say it's not that important. If you're doing that, you're really not that good at math, which is false, right? But so I think we just have to really change how we think about the world in general as mathematicians and math educators, that it's not just us versus them. It feels like it, but it can't just be that.
And I want to add, we've done media training with the board after I had the lovely experience of being on Fox News one-on-one with Tucker Carlson to defend our position paper. And that was something I did not want to do. And I just become president when a organization who was trying to expose liberal bias in colleges found our position paper and began the attack, and then Fox News found it and continued. So we started with media training. We spent time talking about how to talk to organizations, how to talk to news people. I wrote an article on 10 Facts to Remember, which is exactly some of the things Michael said about finding common ground. I prepared in 3 days for that 7 minutes, more than I did for my PhD prelims. And I learned a lot about how to talk to media, and I learned what you should say and what you shouldn't say. And I got hate mail, and I got hate email, and I got hate messages on every social media front you could get. But I also got support messages and mothers telling the story of their children who they thought were stupid, and she listened and she believed what I said about their education. So while it's uncomfortable to do those kind of things, that's where we have to step out and do that. And that's kind of where that bold leadership word that my board put in a month before this happened kicked me. So.
Let me just add one more comment to that too. We're not going to change the people who are on either extreme, but we can influence the people in the middle. And that's who we should concentrate on, are those people. And also the fact that, I don't know how it is in with math educators, but traditionally with math professors, it's kind of been looked down upon that if you can go into industry or you can go into something else if you're not quite good enough to be a math professor. Mm-hmm. That attitude has to change. And I think we need to get the younger people. We've got some people here who are in graduate school. Think about being more politically active. Now, I'm talking a lot about this stuff. I'll tell you, I am a Republican, but I don't like Trump, okay? But it's uncomfortable maybe for a lot of us to be politically active, to get out of our comfort zone, but that's how change is going to happen. Because we're the ones that know what to say. We know the background. We can't just rely on other people to do it. We need to do that. So we need to get out of our comfort zone, especially the younger people. I mean, if I were younger, there are so many opportunities available that I would love to take advantage of. But I'm getting older. We need to share the message with the younger people that it's important to do this. Not only, if you're a mathematician or a math educator, it's great to do the research, it's great to teach and all that, but don't shy away from opportunities to talk to other people and make your voice heard.
Robert.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Were you gonna close up?
No, I went.
So some of the things I grapple with and challenge with, and I'll say this: I'm a father of 3 young black boys. Well, no, they're not young anymore.
You think of them as young.
Yeah. School has not always been a positive place, not only for my boys, but also for many black boys. And in fact, education has been offensive in some respect. So how do we build in mathematics in particularly, can be offensive and has been offensive. And so my role as NCTM president, my role of thinking about people and humans and this discussion about diversity, certainly we can have diversity, but we have diversity without inclusion. And when I say inclusion, I'm thinking about, do you accept me? Do you respect me? Do you value my contribution? And I'm not convinced that inclusion is in this space in the way that is inviting for the kinds of diversity that we hope to have. So we can build diversity. That's the easy work. That is the easy work. It is now, how do we build diversity with inclusion? And that is the work that people are tiptoeing around. And I want to be provocative in this space to say, we gotta not tiptoe around this space. We gotta not tiptoe around this space. We gotta recognize the offensiveness of mathematics that has been to communities of people. Not only when we think about it, mathematizing math and how it has really destroyed communities not in political ways and in social ways, but also how do we help build that, work through that, and then honor the pain that comes with it. I'm hurt, and I'm always hurt in this space because the injury that required me to have been in this space. And people sometimes don't recognize that people come to this space broken and don't recognize the injury that this space brings. But and that's why some people are not here. But some of us are here. And some of our voices have to be elevated. And so that's part of my role. My role is to elevate voices, champion folks in. And I'm gonna talk about some of these things in my talk a little bit later.
This is like, don't go away, folks.
It's definitely not the preview.
Yes, one more
It's not
question.
the preview.
Comment.
I'm hurt too, so thank you. But, and I agree with what you said, that we need young people. And I'm almost one of them because I started kind of late. But I have to say that it's very, very hard to figure out when you can do this bold thing. Because if you have an advisor whose politics does not agree with you, you have to keep your mouth shut. If you are looking for a job in academia, you have to keep your mouth shut. And if you are trying to get tenure, you have to keep your mouth shut. And I almost didn't get tenure because my politics doesn't agree with my department. And now that I got tenure, by the skin of my teeth, I have a lot of enemies. And I am in a very hurt place, but it's hard for all of us to figure out when we are in this place where we can be so bold. With young people, we want them to be that bold person, but it may not get them the career they need so that they can have the power to have that strong voice and be heard. And I have to say that, because I don't feel safe speaking these truths. I still don't.
So I come from, you have to stop this now, but I actually am, my origins were from Wisconsin. And unfortunately, in the climate in Wisconsin, at the University of Wisconsin, many of really reputable, solid, professional in the disciplines left because they didn't feel safe at the University of Wisconsin. David, one closing thought.
Yeah, this will be really quick. Thinking about what I'm hearing here, which is super important, and the allusions to equity that I've heard in the talk so far, one thing that stands out to me is one thing that is often not mentioned in equity statements is the racialization, the genderization of mathematics itself. Not just the teaching of mathematics or the social setting that mathematics exists within, but mathematics itself is racialized and gendered.
And on that, we will take a break and regroup for the next panel. Thank you.